Let's use this one. Hello, hello, hello. Please forgive us. We're a little bit behind in time as we were celebrating my mom's 91st birthday today. So we're excited about the show. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Progressively Yours Health and Wellness podcast. We have a great show lined up for you, as always. And take us through our little spiritual opening.
Greetings, Bernard Kynes here, and so honored that you've joined to be with us tonight as we kind of fumbling around just a little bit for the first time, and so delighted that you have joined to be with us. We are so honored to have a very special guest with us tonight, but as is part of our tradition on the show, we like to begin with the spiritual opening, and I will hit our bow or strike our bow. You don't hit the bow. And I invite you to join in if you like to participate. I'll do a small reading from Howard Thurman because we have the par excellent scholar on Howard Thurman to share with us tonight. So if you're open to closing your eyes, I'd like for you to take 3 what I refer to as cleansing breaths, in and out through your nose. We breathe in and out through our nose, deep and full, with a longer exhalation, because this helps to bring balance to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerve in our brain, which lowers our anxiety and our stress. So when you're feeling stressed, just pause and take 3 breaths in and out through your nose. We always welcome the presence of the ancestors into this space and into this place. And as we come to present ourselves before you, the listening audience, we do not worship our ancestors, but rather we pay homage for the journey that they paid for us many, many hundreds of years ago. And those that survived the transatlantic voyage, we are their direct descendants. Therefore, as we come to heal, we come to transform our lives in this space and in this place and at this appointed time. Ashe.
Ashe.
Namaste.
Namaste.
And Amen.
Amen.
I want to read for our spiritual meditation these words from Howard Thurman. It's called The Art of Confession. It's very short, and he writes, "It is good to confess in the quietness whatever there is within us that cries out for confession, and to feel in the art of confession that God, who hears and judges, also understands and loves. It is no ordinary thing to be free enough within to confess, even to God, that which cries out for confession. It is wonderful beyond measure to be able to share a sterling of thanksgiving, which we feel, and to do this with the kind of confidence that makes it unnecessary to custom make the language that we use. To be able to say thanks to God with no necessity to try to impress God with our thoughtfulness or to store up some form of merit that would plead for our case at other times when gratitude is lacking and thanksgiving is far removed. It is no ordinary thing to say to thee, O God, thank you so much. Thank you so very, very much, our Creator. Ashe.
Shay, thank you. Thank you for those words of wisdom from Howard Thurman. Um, okay. I don't know. We're here. Go back. It's don't want to remove. Cut that off. Start again. Okay, there we are. Sorry about that. I was just saying that, as we reach this season of Thanksgiving, there are a lot of folks who talk about the injustices to the indigenous people. And that's something that I always bring up around this time. And, there are lots of stories of what was done and the celebrations that we now know were just stories that were made up. Um, However, in my family, Thanksgiving was always about celebrating my mom's birthday. And this year, we're blessed to have her for another year. She is 91. And that's part of why we're a little bit delayed, but it's just such a blessing to have Carmen Thompson still with us and in our lives, and it's beautiful. So, with that, I would also like to share a second verse from a book that I shared last week, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. Let's see if you can see that. By Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, The Complete Tao Te Ching and Affirmations. And so the second one was very interesting. The affirmation that he made of it, which is kind of a summary of the second verse, is, when my work is done, it is forgotten. That is why it lasts forever. So the second verse says, under the heaven, all can see beauty as beauty, only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good only because there is evil. Being and non-being produce each other. The difficult is born in the easy. Long is defined by short and high by the low. Before and after go along with each other. So the sage lives openly and with apparent duality and paradoxical unity. The sage can act without effort and teach without words, nurturing things without possessing them. He works, but not for rewards. He competes, but not for results. When the work is done, it is forgotten. That is why it lasts forever. Words to think about. I like that piece, and it does have me thinking. I know that the Buddhist monks who traveled around the country, they were always here, like in the springtime, and different organizations and universities and churches have hosted them, and they do these beautiful sand paintings, and I mean, just with so much detail. They're really big, and people come and they visit and look at them and take pictures and all of that. But or maybe they don't let you take pictures. I'm trying to remember. Maybe they do. But anyway, what I remember is that after displaying the sand painting for like a week, they release it to the ocean. And it's like, wow, all that hard work, and now it's gone. But as the saying goes, as the second verse goes, it's gone, but it lasts forever because it existed. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to my buddy, and you get to introduce Dr. Smith.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those words of wisdom. Yeah, I have the honor and privilege of introducing a very dear friend of mine. I must come clean on that. And Dr. Luca Smith and I have been knowing each other for many, many years. And one of the things that's not on the bio that I read is that he and I share a spiritual father in ministry, and the ancestor now of Jasper Miles Pettigrew. And I shared with Dr. Smith, Brother Luther, as I like to refer to him. And I had lunch, and I was sharing with him that the reason I was in Atlanta was because of Jasper Miles Pettigrew, and that enabled our lives to cross paths. And when I was entering into ministry at Bethel CME in Cordele, Pettigrew talked highly of my friend Dr. Smith, and told me early on that he was someone that I wanted to look up to, and I always have. So that's kind of the personal note that I want to say from the beginning, but I want you to know a little bit more about him as a scholar and a professional and a community person. Luther E. Smith Jr., PhD, is Professor Emeritus of Church and Community, Candler School of Theology at Emory University. The title of his teaching position reflects his commitment to social transformation as an expression of religious conviction. Dr. Smith speaks and has written extensively on issues of church and society, congregational renewal, Christian spirituality, and the thought of Howard Thurman. In recognition of his scholarship, teaching, and community service, he was inducted into Morehouse's College Martin Luther King Jr. Collegium of Scholars, received the Distinguished Scholar Award from the Black Religious Scholars Group, the Distinguished Teaching Award from Candler School of Theology and Emory University, is a recipient of the Candler School of Theology Candler Centennial Medal given to 56 living and dead who in Candler's 100-year history demonstrated one or more of the values of the highest standards of intellectual inquiry, devotion to Christian tradition, passion for social justice, and a commitment to practices of transformation, and has received outstanding service awards from statewide child advocacy organizations in Georgia. He is a co-founder of the Interfaith Children's Movement that educates, mobilizes, and networks faith communities in being advocates for children in Georgia. He is the coordinator of the Pan Methodist Campaign for Children in Poverty. The campaign represents the commitment of 6 Methodist denominations to address the realities of children in poverty. Dr. Smith helped to found the International Community of Schools that has as its mission educational excellence for children who have experienced the traumas of war and violence. He is an ordained minister of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. It is an honor, privilege, and with great delight that I introduce to our audience tonight a friend, a brother, a scholar, a gentleman, Dr. Luther E. Smith, Jr. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good evening. And it's so good to see both
I
of
hear
you.
you. Are you muted?
Muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you.
I'm not muted.
Okay, now it says you're muted.
Are
Now
you
it
able
says
to hear
unmute.
me?
Wow.
We'll see if our producers can help you out a
Yeah,
little
because
bit.
we were hearing you a moment ago.
Yes.
Make sure
Are you
on
able
the
to hear
bottom
me?
panel where it says unmuted and that you're in the studio.
Yes.
You are in the studio.
Yeah.
Let's see something.
Yeah, but he was working a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
Edit mic settings. I don't think we can. You may be able to edit your mic setting. Janet's saying he's loud and clear, so we're not
we
hearing
can't
you.
hear you on our end.
Oh no.
Hold on for a second. Let us
Okay.
try something. We're gonna have to change computers. I don't know what's going on.
Try that. Oh, you work on that one. I'll go this one. Huh, it's weird.
Let's say something now.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Oh, now.
we hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I was just expressing gratitude for your invitation as well as for this time together. It's good to see both of you. I've been so anticipating the evening, especially hearing about the significance of this podcast, not only to the two of you, but for your audience. So thank you for the invitation.
You're so welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you can.
So, Luther, we're so delighted that you're here. I'm trying to get my collar together.
Your collar looks fine.
Tell us, in your own words, a little bit about who you are and share with us about your journey, your faith journey, your life journey, just something that you would want the audience to know from Luther Smith himself.
Oh my.
Open-ended question.
Well, I think of myself as a seeker. That is, as I've understood it, to be perhaps one of the most fundamental characterizations of anyone who is committed to pursuing matters of the spirit. And what is important about seeking for me is it's an admission that what is so needed to feed one's hunger is both with one and beyond one. And so I search for that which is nourishing in a variety of ways, certainly with the intellectual life, with the devotional life, in personal relationships, as well as taking seriously God's dream of community, God's what so many have characterized as beloved community, and to understand how my own life um, not only understands these things, but hopefully is increasingly committed to a true path in relationship to them. So I think in the most perhaps brief way, I would say that's a kind of self-understanding that I have. It's been one that I think characterizes my many years of life, and I hope characterizes the life that is before me.
You taught many years at Candler School of Theology at Emory University. What are some of the most meaningful moments that you recall during your active tenure teaching students who were matriculating through that institution?
Some of the most meaningful times for me, as you have characterized it, are the students. I feel very obligated to students for the kind of joy that I have about the journey as a professor. I learn so much from my students. I think of students as my teachers. I design a syllabus with the understanding that students will be making contributions that will not only benefit each one, but they will be benefiting their peers in the classroom and will be benefiting me. So that works also for me from a spiritual dimension, that all of us have wisdom resident within us,
Mm.
and all of us have the sort of questions that are pursuing that which is not only true, but that which is good. And all of us have some insights to benefit the world. And what I seek to do is to understand how best might I be able to receive that, as well as to stimulate students understanding that within themselves, to understand how that also transcends what they already know, and to engage others in a way that's insightful for them, and how to contribute within the classroom community context so that we're all benefiting from this search together.
Tell us.
So that's one. I would also say it's been for me a real blessing to have roles that have been important for my faculty colleagues. I was dean of the associate dean for faculty, and providing leadership for colleagues who have been going through their own process of vocational elevation, as well as looking over matters of curriculum and having some leadership with faculty around those matters. I was also at the university the president of the university senate, which entailed the faculty, the students, and the staff of the university. And that too was a very formative time for me, both in terms of addressing the immediate issues of faculty, students, and staff, but also having a sense of what it means to address institutional issues that are in some way, I think, laying a foundation for decades to come, especially as you're talking about such things as just the environmental issues of a university and where buildings go. And if they're going there, what are you taking out of the natural environment that has been so beneficial to the school? Places where students, I think, really do have their spirits lifted from trees and bushes and streams. What does it mean that you have enough money to actually dedicate a building in a place that's going to eliminate all of these things? These are the kinds of discussions that we had, along with all of the other matters that occur within the life of a university. And I felt very fortunate to have that role in the life of the university.
Sounds like you had a really rich experience, in your time at Emory. Tell us a little bit about your work with the youth and how you may have gotten students involved. In your bio, it mentioned working with youth, young people who were impoverished. I'm actually on the board of a youth serving organization in Decatur, Results Kids Central, that serves the needs of a lot of young people, some of whom were impoverished, many of whom are impoverished. And it's also a very large international community in this part of Decatur. And so I'm always interested in how we can connect with other organizations and universities that are working with young people in the area. So are you still involved with young folks? Tell us a little bit about that. That's one of my personal interests.
Yes. Yes. It's my involvement primarily has been to be working at a organizational level on their behalf. My earliest work was as a community organizer, where I was organizing welfare recipients to basically make decisions about what they felt the welfare office ought to be providing and how it was failing with those provisions. We did protests in the street. We did protests in offices. We actually, I think, transformed the lives of tens of thousands of welfare recipients by providing the kind of information that many of them did not have in terms of benefits that should be given to them but were not occurring out of their local offices. And we worked with supervisors and persons out of the governor's office to make these kinds of transformations. And here it was focused on families, especially families living in poverty and depending upon a system that was not addressing what it said they were entitled to, as well as pushing the government to do more than it was doing. So that's where it began for me. And so my years of serving with various community organizations usually was dealing around matters of family, especially families living on the margins, and children, of course, as being those who I think tend to be the most vulnerable in light of so many of our children have things happen to them, but often do not feel the agency to affect their larger environment in ways that need change. When we formed the Interfaith Children's Movement, this was in 2001, it was with the understanding that so many matters that benefit our children are decided at the state legislative level. And yet people of faith, very, very few people of faith were there out of their faith condition to speak up for children. And of course, you don't have many children there except those who are part of households where they are being homeschooled. And most of those who were there, who were being homeschooled, really did not have the kind of sensitivity to the larger issues affecting tens of thousands of children in Georgia. They had both a faith orientation and a civic orientation that tended to, I think, distrust government and not take seriously the realities that so many of our children are having to deal with. And consequently, the legislation for children was not what it should have been in Georgia. So we started in 2001 when the state of Georgia was working to take money from Peach Care, which at that point in time had a reputation as one of the most, I think, significant healthcare programs for children in the country. And now we're going to balance the Georgia budget on the backs of children needing health care. We got involved with that. The legislators, I think, listened to the way in which we organized faith leaders from about 6, 7, 8 different religious traditions. And since then, we've been attending to a range of issues, from changing a juvenile justice code that had not been changed in 43 years. That makes a major difference in children who are being detained, as well as the kinds of services that children are able to receive, especially including the sort of defense expert lawyers when they are being charged and tried for matters. We've dealt with the sexual trafficking of children in Georgia, and very much behind Rachel's law, which is to provide resources for facilities that are helping our children to heal from the trauma experienced in being sexually trafficked. The ending school suspensions for children who are in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, because often out of school suspensions are a first step to what the Children's Defense Fund calls the school to prison pipeline.
Right.
Children who dealing with these suspensions often end up on the streets of neighborhoods that are very precarious, and that leads to other types of behaviors that not only fail them in terms of education, but other opportunities which all children should have. So it's been through the interfaith children's movement. It's been through community organizing. It's been through other local organizations that I have been doing my work, and especially in light of what you've said, the interfaith children's movement has now transitioned into forming a youth academy, so that youth have the ability to be advocates for their generation as well as generations to come. To take seriously that youth not only have the potential, youth have currently the capacity to make a difference in their lives. And when a difference is made in their lives, a difference is made in all of our lives.
Absolutely. That's powerful. I'm glad that so does the interfaith children's movement still exist? Does the collaboration among the different interfaith leaders still exist?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful. The Results Kids Club, they've actually collaborated with, or I should say we, because I'm on their board, have collaborated with the Baha'i Center, which is very close to the Results Kids Center in terms of space, in terms of activities, in terms of engaging the youth in that area, which is near Wesley Chapel and South Harrison, in that area. So that's been a nice collaboration with the Baha'i community there.
Yes. Oh, I look forward to us having some conversation about that when we're at some form of table fellowship together.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do lunch or something soon to talk about. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I want to go back to a statement you made earlier. Wisdom reside in us. And could you expand on that? And in your scholarship with Thurman, integrate in your reflections how he also understood this wisdom that is a resident within each of us. Since we are about health and wellness, We want our listeners to understand that health and wellness is very important to our society and community, as you just mentioned with the children, and that they bring this wisdom to the table. Can you share with them what that means, what it looks like, how they can access it, and how Thurman thinking helped you to formulate your own thoughts?
Mm-hmm. I think we can think of wisdom in at least two ways. One being lived experience, and often, but not always, persons have, I think, a richer sense of wisdom if they have lived the life of reflection and not just live the days coming to conclusions that perhaps have been meaningful to them personally, but may not extend beyond their own way of making sense of the world. So there's a wisdom that comes from lived experience, and you spoke at the very beginning of our time about the respect for the ancestors, and this is one of the reasons why there is such respect for the ancestors. One of the reasons why there is such respect, the kind of wisdom in which they bring to the present, both in terms of those who are alive as well as those who have passed on. And then there's a wisdom, I think, with which we're born, and it's the kind of wisdom that has created each of us, because we did not think ourselves into existence, and we do not think about how we will have taken each breath of each day, or the ways in which we are having heartbeats that keep us alive, or the so many functions of the body over which this is not a part of our consciousness. It's a wisdom of the body. And Thurman did speak about this dimension of wisdom, that there's a wisdom in the body, a wisdom of the body, that it's important to acknowledge, and if you don't acknowledge it, you're taking it for granted. And if you're taking it for granted, it's a kind of it's a sacrilege. It's a failure to honor that which is holy. It's the recognition of a mystery, and too often, because it's in everyone we've known, we think of it as common, and too often we think of things that are common as somehow or another lacking mystery. We think of maybe mystery as being located in that which is more distinctive, if not unique. But each one of us is full of this kind of body wisdom. Each one of us is full of this mystery. And I want to be very careful here, because mystery is not a matter of what we don't know. There is that element of mystery, and we sometimes often think of a mystery story as something that we're not quite sure who did it. So there's that, but there's a deeper understanding of mystery that isn't dependent upon, somehow or another, the more knowledge you get, the less mystery there is. But what does it mean that the very things that we know about the body still are elements of mystery? They still, in some sense, confound us, and they take us to a place of reverence and appreciation and respect, that it's not just a matter of our ability to detail how something functions. Whatever we're doing in detailing how the body functions, it's still a mystery. We can name perhaps a process that's going on, but all of the elements behind that process, the kind of energy, the kind of intentionality, all of this is still within the ground of mystery. And I think it's within all of us, from those who score highest on IQ tests to those they can't even measure because it's they get very little score, if any. It's within all of us, and it's important for us to discover, how do we position ourselves to appreciate the mystery that is before us in relationships, the mystery that is before us in people maybe we are not related to, but we know are part of the community, the mystery of people that we should care about, even if they're not in our immediate community, but they are in conditions which are not honoring who they are as sacred beings. An organization in which I served on the national board for many years is L'Arche, L'Arche USA. And L'Arche is now in every continent except Antarctica. And its focus is on community with people with intellectual disabilities. And so the testimony for those who work closest with persons with intellectual disabilities, forming community and living together, eating together, working together, playing together, traveling together. The testimony made is that those with intellectual disabilities bring a kind of character and quality to friendships like no other, and have enriched the lives of, quote, the caregivers. And to the extent that it's not like caregiver and those who are, just receiving care, there's mutuality in this. And if you know Henry Nouwen, who's done considerable writing in areas of spirituality, the last years of his life were spent at daybreak in Canada in one of these L'Arche communities. And he spent time with one of the persons who could not speak. Henry Nouwen had to take care of his most basic bodily functions. This was someone who had no idea who Henry Nouwen was, traveling the world, did not give Henry Nouwen any sort of affirmation because he was traveling and impressing people and writing books, and was renowned as something of a master in the area of spirituality. Here was Adam on a bed in relationship with Henry Nouwen, and Henry Nouwen credits Adam as taking him to a spiritual depth that he had not had before. So it's this kind of interaction that I think is not just possible, but is always available to us if we respect the options, the availability, and if we give ourselves to it in ways that enable us to be more open-hearted.
I see that kind of relationship between my mom and her caregiver. My mom has dementia, just turned 91. And, she has days where, she doesn't really communicate or say anything, but Tracy communicates with her in a way that nobody else can. And she gets her to speak and respond, and the rest of us are like, how'd you do that? How did you get her to speak? And it's just beautiful, because it really is a kind of mind, body, spirit connection that I see between the two of them. That's so beautiful, and it's so nice. And for someone as talented and wise as Tracy is, to, I don't know if the word is to humble herself, to be somebody's caregiver, but I know that she's getting, just as much out of the relationship, with my mom. And it's so beautiful. So I think, what I heard you saying throughout the discourse was kind of the intersectionality between mind, body, and spirit in us. We all have that wisdom. We're all born with, this a certain knowing. And it's so beautiful, and we can't necessarily name it or put our finger on it, but it's like mother wit. It's like, why did I jump up in the middle of the night one night and just start praying? And the phone rings, and my son, who was a long distance truck driver at the time, he said, well, Mom, I just want you to know that I'm okay, but my truck almost went off a cliff in Colorado in a snowstorm, and I'm sitting here waiting for them to correct the truck and get it back on the road. And I'm like, what? And I'm sitting there crying and laughing and celebrating all at the same time. But it's like, how did that happen? I don't know. No idea. But it's interesting to pay attention to those things. I was in a store today, and I passed somebody, a sister, who nodded and said hello. And she had a mask on, so I couldn't see her face that well. But I said, boy, she sure looked like my friend Donna, right? So I leave that store and go across the street to another store, and I feel this tap on me. That is you. It was Donna. I was like, what? I said, I just thought I saw you, a few minutes ago. We were like, that's how the magic works. We called folks to ourselves, and we just it's just kind of like a nice dance through life. And so that's beautiful that you see that and honor that in life.
I was taken from what you were sharing, Luther, about wisdom in the three ways that you broke it down: lived, ancestors, and that at which we were born. So one of the first thoughts that came to mind for me was understanding wisdom that way helps to also eliminate judgment. We live in a very judgmental society. And but just hearing that the use of wisdom, the recognition of it in that way, can help us see others as mutual brothers and sisters in our day-to-day operations as we seek to bring justice in our communities, transform lives. Is that something you would agree with?
Of course, of course, and it's. I think recognizing the mutuality that we should be, I think, pursuing among us is really crucial. It's another way of saying, I see you, I respect you. The word respect is spect is to see, and respect is to see again. And so I respect you. I see you again. It's not just a glance or a one look off. And that I honor that. And it may be an honoring that occurs just by actually looking at someone rather than looking off. It may be an honoring that occurs when someone has spoken and you're not automatically in a defensive mode in relationship to them, because you never know what it has taken for that person to come forth and to ask for direction or to ask for a contribution or to indicate that they were just acknowledging you on the street in some way. And so it relates to the way in which I think too often, and this may even be in our DNA, the whole sense of a stranger is someone who is automatically understood to be threat. We, of course, will have these instructions to our children about staying away from strangers, stranger danger, and so forth. And there are realities beyond that, but it carries over into anyone who's a stranger is to be either avoided or controlled, because they are a threat. William May, in his book on the cardinal sins, he says the word for stranger in many languages is the same word that is used for enemy. And to think about that.
Yeah.
That it's strangers are automatically understood to be as enemy. When anyone comes into the village who we don't know, that's a threat. and so there is this sense of, and so much in the biblical literature, Jesus speaking about what it means when he was a stranger, and you connected with me, or you have certainly in the Hebrew scriptures how you are to relate to the alien, how you are to relate to the stranger, because you're also a stranger to somebody, or you have been a stranger, as the scriptures say. And these elements of how we relate to one another, I think are crucial if we're ever hoping to arrive at some place of beloved community. So this gets to one of your terms. It's a long route to get there, but I'm getting there. There is a sense in which we, I think, overplay judgment to the point at which we are making decisive conclusions about individuals out of anxiety and fear, and or maybe even out of some hostility that we've had, and we become dismissive of our fuller selves. And certainly our system of incarceration feels that way about people. So there's a sense in which a kind of judgmentalism characterizes how we function as a culture, how we function as a society, in ways that I think are damaging to any hope we really have of beloved community. There's that sense of, I think we're always in states of discerning and trying to take seriously how our own decisions should be made in ways that honor other people, including strangers, that honor what may actually be a threat. To have some wisdom about that, to try and heal from bad decisions that we have made personally, to understand how we remove ourselves from only thinking of relationships in terms of how we're caught in, or how we're trapped by kind of judgmentalism about people, but what kind of energy do we give to creative relationships with friends, as well as strangers, as well as enemies? And I think more of that, being able to think through how we work our way through conflicts, how we work our way through casual relationships, how we work our way with people who have different identities than us, how we work our way through with people who have the same identity that we carry, but who think very differently about those identities than we do. It's these ways of taking seriously what I think is really the human project of not only living in community, but having a a sense of stewardship for community, which means also a sense of responsibility for the interpersonal relationships that I go to, that come to me, that have not been scheduled, that have been ongoing for years. This is our task. This is our responsibility. This is what it means to be a denizen in this world.
Thank you. That reminded me of an experience. We have about 5 minutes left. I'll make this very short, quick story. But there was a gentleman standing on a corner, and he was asking, funds to get help for himself, some food or whatever he wanted to do with it. And I decided to give him. I just had a few extra 20s in my pocket, and I decided to give him a 20, and I folded it up in my hand to give it to him. And when I gave him the money, I didn't know him, but I knew him. He looked into my eyes so deeply with gratitude. I have never had that type of penetration of gratitude just by a gesture. I thought I was doing something, large by giving him 20, and he gave me more than that money could not measure, and just changed me on the spot. When I was driving away and I went to my therapy group, I was sharing with the group, I wept. I didn't realize what had happened to me. But it's this kind of interplay that we have to find in all circles is what I'm hearing you say. And that's what we want to be about on our show, Progressive Yours Health and Wellness. Is we want to extend this beloved community to the community to help to continue to change, transform lives in the best ways that we can. And so you have been a part of that conversation and vision that Imani and I have for our show.
Thank you so much. This has been good. It reminded me of a poem that I wrote, and I wish I heard Nikki Giovanni say a long time ago, and she's one of my favorites. She says, I don't memorize my poems. So I said, oh, that was an easy out. I don't have to memorize my poems. But this particular one is called When Spirits Touch. And it really describes a casual, I was passing an older Black woman in a supermarket, and our eyes met. And it was just like the most beautiful moment for a moment, and the name of the poem is When Spirits Touch. And it talks about there's a spark and a glow and an inside kind of, feeling that happens. And, whether it happens for a moment or a lifetime, it inevitably lasts for a lifetime, because when spirits touch, there's no taking it back. And it's there forever. It's like in the beginning, I was doing the second verse from the Tao, and it says, it lasts forever, even though it's gone. So that was kind of one of the themes that I got from what you were sharing, just the touching other spirits and people in life, and not judging, and kind of just being open. It's so beautiful.
So Luther, you have the closing word. What words of wisdom would you like to share with the listening audience as we prepare to end our show tonight?
I think life is an adventure. And it's the sort of adventure where you don't have to travel halfway across the world to have it. It's there's Howard Thurman was so taken with a writer who basically was bedridden, but her spirit was soaring through reading, through conversation, through reflection, in ways in which you had the sense of, here is someone who is so hungry for that which is most meaningful, that being away from this bed is not necessary for her to pursue what her heart, what her spirit so hungers for. And I think that's the opportunity for all of us. And I think perhaps a life lived in regret is a life that's lived having chosen to not take the adventure, to not be on the journey, when clearly the path was before us.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And we thank all of you who've listened and joined in tonight and who will listen. This is available on Facebook, YouTube,
LinkedIn.
and LinkedIn. Luther, we thank you. We look forward to a time when we break bread together and have further conversation. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And to our producers, Toya and Janet, once again, thank you
so much for your
care
support
and your support and helping us along the way. And to all of you who've been with us tonight, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Amen. And good night.
Good night.